Hi, Juliette. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here. Thank you very much for the invite. It was, yeah, very exciting. So looking forward to
Yeah,
it.
for sure, for sure. Likewise. Well, I'm very excited to have this conversation because, yeah, based on everything we've spoken about before, there's a lot of ground to cover here. So, I mean, you've built two companies at the intersection of learning, neuroscience, and now AI. And you're leading the charge with this hyper personalized education through iridescent technology. For tech founders trying to scale knowledge across teams or markets, what do you think they're most underestimating about how people actually learn and retain information?
Well, kick off with the hard ones. Why don't you? Um, what a massive question. So yeah, no, I think one of the problems that we have in learning, right? And this is just makes it really, really basic to understand. So whether we're at school or whether we're doing this for in a corporate setting, the our past experience has done what we call a one to many model. So this means that everybody is being taught the same way, pretty much the same thing. And in an environment like, a work environment, obviously one size fits all is not the way to go. And so we've done lots of different things like micro learning, and we've, learning, doing via development streams, but it's not enough to really, really get inside the head of each individual person and give them, the focus and the real guidance they need in their role to really kind of move forward at the pace they could have. So, there's just a tremendous opportunity to utilize AI to move from the one to many model to the one to one model. But in and around that, there's obviously complexity, which we can unpack.
Yeah, sounds good. And that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, leveraging technology now, leveraging AI to go from that one to many to one, hyper personalization. That makes a lot of sense. Um, and that's your focus now with Iridescent. That the main focus is that hyper personalized learning. So, what signals made it clear that this was the direction the market and your company needed to take?
Again, a really good question, and it was quite a personal voyage for me. So, by background, I'm dyslexic. My kids are dyslexic and have got ADHD. And being candid, we're all really quite bright. We're bright and kind of motivated, but I personally did very badly at school. I basically got chucked out of school. It was just a bit of a nightmare. And so I think from a very, very early age, I was really pissed off, if I'm allowed to use that word in
Of
your
course.
podcast, um, that I wasn't allowed to learn the cool stuff, because basically I couldn't access it. And so I've always had that underpinning that I think there are a lot of people out there that have not been able to unleash their inner awesomeness in their career or find the right career for them to basically wake up like I do every day. And I don't really think I go to work. I just really enjoy myself. It's just it's just really cool what I do. And even the idea of retirement is like, what? Because, and everyone should be like that, in my view. Everyone should really enjoy what they do, and everybody should have the capacity to have a job that they're intellectually stimulated by, that they're curious about, and they want to do the right thing. Um, and so, I obviously built growth engineering for 20 something years, very successful EdTech company that we delivered out to, Apple, L'Oreal, HP, Victoria's Secrets, huge global brands. And the focus there was very much making learning fun. So we used a lot of gamification, we used a lot of, um, social activity. But when AI came into my orbit, and this is probably, 3 years ago, that was really when my mind was like, right, we can now really begin to do something with learning. And so
Mm.
about 2 years ago, I made the decision to say, you know what, um, you know, depending on how many of your listeners know about tech, but traditional SaaS, is very, very different than working with AI because the data structures are different. So in a traditional kind of database, MySQL database. It looks like an Excel spreadsheet, for want of better words. When you're in the AI realm, your data looks like a brain. So basically, it's the data is in a 3D space, and it all kind of moves in and around, and it's about much more. How the data connects. It's not about a linear XY axis. So I knew that I needed to start fresh. I couldn't necessarily create my vision from growth engineering because fundamentally the tech stacks are different. So at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go on a crazy mad voyage, start a new company. Growth engineering is still trading and doing really well. Incredibly proud of the management team there. Still love what they do. The gamification side of things, gets you know users super engaged, on their learning, and they love it. But this journey was much more one of discovery, and then very, very fortuitously, not in my life plan at all, I happened upon the perfect co-founder, which ended up being my son, of all people. So I had no idea. So we started talking about AI. He is quite technical in nature. He was studying at a university in Tokyo, doing really well, and then suddenly one day I got a call from his father. His father and I are divorced, saying, "Oh, I didn't realize Cosmo was giving up university to come and join you full time in Iridescent." And I was like, "Well, isn't that just typical? Don't mums always get told last?" So there I had it. So definitely not in my life plan to work with my son, but he is super bright, super smart, no challenge, he's not happy to take on. So although he's very young, um, I guess that's why he's willing to take on, this incredible challenge. So yeah, over the last 2 years, we've had great fun, trying to build something, epically failing, epically succeeding, epically failing, 2 steps forward, 5 steps back, 10 steps forward, 1 step back, the joys of a startup. But yeah, it's working really well, and I'm very much looking forward to the next stage. We've proved out the product. We've now done a fantastic pilot with a large blue chip called Centrica, which is part of British Gas. So we've learnt lots of lessons, and the platform looks fantastic. So very much looking forward to getting onto full scale commercialization.
Awesome. Awesome. And I've also, yeah, as you know, I had Cosmo on this podcast, your son. And yeah, super eloquent, super bright guy. And yeah, he's got a lot to talk about when it comes to Zavmo and the product. And it's super interesting, really exciting, interesting things that you're doing. Yeah. So going back, so you've 23-year journey as an entrepreneur, founded Growth Engineering, which is still going, and then the shift into Iridescent. How has your perspective on entrepreneurship evolved over that time?
I'm deeply jaded now. Deeply
Okay.
jaded. Um, I think when you're young, and this is one of the things I love about Cosmo, and obviously I don't want the whole podcast to be focused on, but just being young and naive, his enthusiasm is infectious, and it's really
Mm,
helped me get more energy. I think naturally when I started growth engineering, I was like, look, guys, I hate to break it to you, but we're going to revolutionize the world. This is going to be so big that everybody in the universe is going to be
mm.
using, our platform. And I think I just had a tremendous amount of, energy and enthusiasm. After 20 years, battling, through the COVID times, through also the other thing is I'm female, obviously you can tell. I had, when I was starting growth engineering, I was lucky enough to get pregnant and have 2 wonderful children, Cosmo and Zavi. And so while the other people in our industry were busy getting VC money, that was something that could just never happen to me. I mean, I had 2 small
Mm.
children, and they would have just fired me straight away. VCs don't generally like women anyway. I mean, let alone women with children. And so that was also, we had to work much, much harder to to basically stay in business and compete with the biggest businesses, and we did well. You know, we did well, but I think it was just hard work. And then when COVID came along, that was just a nightmare. We took out a C-bill loan. The C-bill loan basically was bought by a venture debt company, which we didn't realize. And I don't know if you know anything about venture debt, but the venture debt company ended up calling in the loan and trying to sell the company from beneath my feet. So basically, in the period of 1 month, I had to, I lost my house, I lost my pension, I lost my
Wow.
business. I had to buy the whole thing back. And it was just tremendously traumatic. So, yeah, I mean, I think in every entrepreneurial journey, you have the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the people that are on that journey are the people that keep you sane. And, I was lucky enough to have some good people on the growth engineering journey. But the people on the iridescent journey are, much younger, because obviously the people on the growth engineering journey, we started off the same age, but 20 years later or whatever, they're 20 years older, and maybe a bit jaded like I am. But certainly with the iridescent journey, I started with a group of young people who've just fired me up. I'm just like, yeah, let's go.
Awesome.
um, yeah, I mean, what advice or whatever would I give is that it's a constant up and down. Running a business, no matter how big it is, you are going to have good days, you're going to have bad days. And success is in the journey, it is not in the outcome. If you
Mm,
don't take success as every day, then you're going to burn yourself out.
yeah, absolutely. Solid advice, and really interesting that you've sort of found that new lease of enthusiasm, lease of life through like like your son, for instance, and that younger sort of generation of in that startup mindset. It's new opportunity here, and yeah, you're getting that infectious energy coming through. That's really
Yeah,
interesting.
and I think some people are built for startups. I'm built for startups. I like new stuff. I like building stuff, breaking stuff. I like failing quickly. I like all of that. I like the hustle. I like the, making things out of nothing. I like the wow moments. And growth engineering was trading for 20 years. I mean, it was
Mm,
well, it still is training. And the managing director who now runs, he is perfect for that role. But
mm,
I just found it, I just wanted, and also the problem I was trying to solve with Iridescent was a problem I could never solve with growth engineering. It's different
mm,
technology stacks. So, I knew there was a problem out there that I wanted to solve, and I was desperate to solve it. And so, the opportunity of starting a new company with a new tech stack, with a new disruptive innovation just kind of ticked all the boxes for me.
mm. Where does your role sit with growth engineering now? Then, if you just sort of design yourself out of the team and you're kind of overseeing it, or what's the situation?
Yeah, I think it would be fair to say that growth engineering heaved a sigh of relief when I was like, because the thing is that I'm like, let's do this, let's do that, come on, let's go. I've got an idea, and they're like, Juliette, we've got a business, we've
Mm,
got some massive trading clients, we've got L'Oreal, we've got, huge, Apple, we've got, just stop coming up with new ideas and just focus on the job in hand. So when I said, look, I'm going to pass over to Gary, who is our FD, I think they were all like, wow, we've now got just a sensible adult at the helm. Um, Thank God she is gone away. Now, don't get me wrong, they are lucky. I do get invited back for the odd, like, "Oh, look, you know. So I do get invited back, and they're still interested in, and we're going to be working with them to do some product development on the AI side. So I am still very much involved. But to be honest with you, I mean, they're rocking it out the park without me. So, Gary is brilliant. The management team have been around for, 14 years. They've been working together. So they're tight. They're super tight.
mm,
And yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, I think it was a bit of a shock, but I don't think it's anything that, it certainly hasn't stopped the company moving forward or anything like that. They've got, everything they need.
Mm. Yeah, and it sounds like you're getting sort of everything you need right now with the this whole opportunity and the the new technology riding this new wave and doing everything that you kind of envisioned and wanted to bring to fruition. And it's like sounds like the timing is right, the opportunity is there, and it's super exciting for you to get back into that sort of startup founder mindset.
Absolutely, and it's not just that. The other thing that I would say is lucky enough to work. Our head of marketing is a lady called Billy, and Billy is really into social media. Like, she's a typical young woman, 20 years old, absolutely goddamn gorgeous. And just brilliant at social media. Like, that's what she does. She's with her friends and they're taking photos and they all look like models and they're doing it, make it into clips and da 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 da. Anyway, I'd never done marketing like that. And she's like, right, Juliette, come on, let's do marketing like this. And I'm like, so I'm learning, brand new things. And then my other son, Zavi, came into the business, and he's even more wacky with the social media. He's convinced everything needs to be funny, and so I look at the stuff that he does all the videos and all the stuff like that, and I'm like, this is just an insane learning journey for me. And so it's not just the technical side of the company that I'm relearning and kind of metamorphizing. It's lots of different areas, and I think for me, I love it. Some people don't like change, but I think I'm a bit of a change junkie, so I absolutely love
And you're now out there on TikTok and what have you, aren't you? Like, you know,
it. I am
yeah.
dreadfully though, but I'm learning. Do you know what I mean? Like, my thing was, when I was first started going on TikTok with Juliet, do not let perfection get in the way of progress, because it's a muscle. It is so difficult for somebody my age, I'm 53, right, to go onto TikTok. Like, it's so, people just don't understand how, well, maybe they do, but it's really difficult. Like, you look horrendous, you look ugly, you say all sorts of stupid things, and you still need to post it. And I was like, no, Juliet, just, woman up and just get on with it. And then hopefully over the process, you'll get better. And so I'm learning, I'm getting better, and hopefully I will start getting more followers at some point. But I'm like, no, don't give up, Juliet. Just keep going. So that's my goal.
Awesome. Awesome. That sounds awesome. Yeah. So do you want to give me a little bit of so Zavmo is your flagship product now. What do you want to give me a bit of a background on that and like the core offering, value proposition?
Yeah, no, I would love to. My favorite subject. So Zavmo is a a big push in trying to make learning as unique as you are. Okay. So I personally believe that everybody can be completely awesome at whatever they want to do if they are given the right infrastructure to do it. Okay. And that is really at heart what Zavmo is there for. It is your personal learning, talent, and development companion for you to reach your life goals. That's what Zavmo is for. And from a real simple point of view, what the learner will get is, first of all, discovery. So this is when Zavmo is talking to you. So Zavmo can speak, listen, and type, and Zavmo can type back to you. Okay. So the first thing is discovery. So Zavmo will ask you questions, where are you in your life? What is your role? What are you doing? Where do you want to get to? Uh, what are your hobbies and interests? How do you like to learn? And then from that, Zavmo will benchmark you against a qualification you might be pursuing, right? So you might be doing GCSEs, but let's, for the purpose of this illustration, take it if you're a corporate. Okay, I'm doing a job in telesales. So what Gavmo will do is then say, is this the type of job that you do? Are these your roles? Are these your responsibilities? And you'll go, yes, broadly, they're my roles and responsibilities. This is the industry you work in. Has Zavmo understood correctly? Yes, Zavmo has. Then on the back of that, Zavmo will pull together a training needs analysis. And that training needs analysis is there to identify how Zavmo can support you being excellent in your current job, but more importantly, help and guide you with new learning to your career ambitions. So then you'll do the training and needs analysis, which will basically identify your knowledge and what you're doing in terms of behavior. And then off the back of that, it basically maps that to qualifications that the UK government recognises. Okay, so this means for the first time, if you're doing any training and development, that training and development you will be able to get a qualification from. And whether you're an apprentice, whether you're somebody's doing a degree in accountancy, or you're somebody who is doing Reiki healing for dogs, whatever it is, it will be able to match it to a qualification that you will be able to get a certification from. So then what happens is that information comes back to you, and you're now in the discussion phase with Zavmo. You sit down and you go, right, okay, yes, Zavmo, I'm happy with that. And then Zavmo says, how would you like to be taught? Would you like to be taught through stories, through case studies, through role play, through, industry examples? How would you like the journey, the learning journey to be? You then decide how you want that learning journey to be curated for you. And then you move into the delivery. And then it's a conversation between you and Zavmo in the way you want to be taught. And then when you're in that stage, Zavmo flags all sorts of things that you're doing. Like Zavmo will flag whether you're showing a growth mindset, whether you're showing in terms of the type of learning you're doing. Oh, you're analyzing, or oh, you're evaluating, or oh, you're showing, a good team spirit. So constantly you get feedback from how you're learning, so that you can lean into the stuff that you're really strongest on. So as you move through the delivery stage, you then go on to demonstrate, and demonstrate is where you get your qualifications. So this is where you have to show you meet the learning objectives, and then that's kind of the journey. And you can hop around. You can hop around all of those things, so you can come in and out of it. But essentially, Zavmo is a 4-step process, but it can happen in any order. And from a like, what does that look like in terms of the AI? So a lot of people, when they say AI, what they're talking about is the large language model. So people think AI is Claude or Open ChatGPT or whatever it is. But when you're creating an AI application, you have to have control over the database underneath it, because we can't just teach you stuff on the open internet, right? That wouldn't meet the standards for corporates or educational institutions. So what we need to do is use the LLM layer, but underneath that, we're controlling what the LLM layer can do and say according to what's in that database. So we work with a huge database of jobs, a huge database of competencies which make up the roles, and then we work with Ofqual. So all of those standards are recognized by the UK government. So we know that we are leaning into best practice.
Yeah, that's really fascinating, and it makes a lot of sense that because I'm sure, and I think that's why you kind of brought it up. I'm sure you get asked quite a lot, in the sales process, like how is this different to just using ChatGPT or what have you? And it's the proprietary data in the database, how that all interoperates with the LLM, and that's the big, yeah.
Yeah, and it's also how we teach. So, I think Zavmo is a perfect combination of a really deep understanding of neuroscience, so the way people learn, and that's really what I bring to the table. And then a really good understanding of how you produce a really good AI application. So an understanding of how you create agent to agent, um, you know, platforms. So there's lots to it. But if you look at the interface for Zavmo, one of the things that you will see is that there's lots of feedback. So we're constantly looking at cognitive overload. So one of the things that humans can't do is learn when they've got cognitive overload. So what Zavmo is doing is constantly checking in your attention, your concentration, so that basically it can moderate the learning in a way that's going to maximize your attention and concentration. And that's also a key part. And ChatGPT just doesn't do that.
Mm,
ChatGPT just basically gives you conversational search.
mm,
So, you know, it's not it's not a learning application in the same way as Zavmo is.
mm. Yeah, that's really fascinating, and I mean, I particularly find this really interesting because it's interesting you kind of open this podcast with that your whole being in your bonnet about the education system, like when you were growing up and like for your kids, and I kind of like, I've always felt the same way, and I only really started to learn stuff when I became an adult, when I became an entrepreneur, and you have to learn things to overcome problems. So I do find all this really fascinating, and it sounds like you've got a lot figured out, but I guess that comes from your vast experience already, because it's Iridescent's only been going for just over a year, and as a startup, finding that product market fit and all the testing and feedback, that takes a while. But it sounds like you've got a lot already figured out. But I guess this just comes from that genesis that you've got all that background experience, and it's something that you've already had envisioned in your mind, and now it's coming to fruition. So it's based on all that, right?
I think, it's two things. First of all, I'm an old lady. That is the wonderful thing about being old. Like, you just know stuff because you've been around. And that's not knowing stuff. That's like literally the lacerations on your back. So you've failed so many times, you've actually picked up the lessons. And then the other thing is that I was incredibly lucky to have is because I have been working with these large blue chips for, the last 20 years. I was speaking at a conference with a client of mine that I have worked with. So she's a customer at British Telecom, which is a client of Growth Engineering, and a customer of Centrica. So she and her team moved to Centrica. So bearing in mind, these are massive blue chips, right? Really complex organizations. And I was speaking at a conference in South Africa, and she was also speaking in the conference. And so she attended my talk, and I was talking about AI applications and the differences between AI applications and traditional SaaS platforms like learning management systems that you find in the industry. And I was talking about what we were trying to do with Zavmo. And at the end of the conversation, I said, Julia, I had absolutely no idea that you were working on this. This is like really future forward stuff. We'd love to do a pilot. And I was like, what? That would be amazing. So very kindly, she lent her she had some conversations internally. And there was a guy called Michael who runs a department in Centrica called LREX, which is legal compliance, regulatory, and it also covers accountancy. A really complicated department, people doing really difficult roles. And so basically trying to do a real world, so a human going in there mapping all the JDs against competencies and then basically doing a training needs analysis, it would have been millions of pounds and would have taken years and years and years. So this AI application is a perfect way of doing that. So she decided, she was like, here, have LREX. And so that's what we did the pilot for. So just going back to, it's good being old, but it's also good having a strong practice history with, clients that you've basically done work with before, good work, that when you're doing something new, you can go to them and go, hey, do you want to be part of this new wave? And Centrica have been fantastic. You like everything from the individuals that actually went through the pilot, but also the project manager. So we had Christine and a guy called Andy who were working on the pilot with us from the Centrica side. Absolutely brilliant. Even though this technology is brand new, they were just so supportive in helping us navigate the internal machinations of what is a big change. So if you can imagine, a company comes to you and says, right, we're going to do training needs analysis on your role. So how well do you do your role? And that's going to be done by AI. Right. That's a really frightening concept for a lot of people. And so Centrica as a whole coming, together to do this pilot, I mean, really very, very bold, but also the project managers just making sure that the way this project was, shaped internally was also, amazing for us because it's not easy. People are frightened of AI. Um, but yeah, it's turned out to be a really great success, and I'm very much looking forward to all the loads of industry awards we're going to win because of it.
Awesome. Well, you've recently like moved over to India, or migrated like some of your dev team over to India. I know Cosmo's based over there now. How do you ensure everyone's aligned and effective when you've just got remote teams and keeping culture and all that sort of thing?
Um, well, I mean, to be perfectly honest, um, I don't really do that. Basically, I am the, hey, look, I know that there's a problem. This is the problem we need to solve. This is where the product needs to go. This is kind of like the vision, and I do a lot of the marketing and stuff like that. But in the India office, we have the head of data science, which is Cosmo. So he is deep in the tech, and he is with the data science team every single day. And then we have an operations manager called Rick, and Rick is he's kind of like the sensitive one. He's basically the guy that, ensures that the team are happy as well as productive. So I think it's very much about having just a good management team. I mean, you can't be responsible for everything.
Mm,
I think at growth engineering, so my first time round, managing a team. So growth engineering at its height got up to nearly 100 people. It was a big, big undertaking. And I think, there was just too much on me as an individual contributor, as the managing director. I didn't have enough around me. So, the last 10 years, I've been pushing a lot of focus into the management team, and now the management
mm,
team. So when I stepped away, there was really no issue. I mean, the
mm,
company was fine. And I think to a certain extent with Iridescent, we've started off with a much more kind of stronger management team from the get-go.
mm,
So it's not incumbent on me to do all aspects of what a managing director would do. Because it does burn you out. It really, really
mm.
does. And you should, know what your strengths are and basically recruit people into your weaknesses, because otherwise you just spend a lot of time doing stuff you hate, and
Mm,
that is exhausting.
mm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I can see that now. Like, yeah, you've totally taken that. Yeah, as you say, last 10 years of experience and really thinking that through, how to develop the management team for growth engineering, so you can sort of design yourself out of that, and then bringing that into starting Iridescent off on the right foot when it comes to the right team in place for you to just sit in your, operate from your zone of genius, um, and do everything that you like to do best as a visionary, and but I can definitely see how your energy, it's not just the other way around. Like, your energy, and like you've definitely got that massive enthusiasm, so you can definitely just, I can see how you sell people into your visionary ideas, and align team, and build it from that sense. So
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I'm naturally an enthusiastic person. That is for sure. I mean, I think I just thank my lucky stars that I was born into a generation of women that could actually work. Because I think there were a generation of women, m- that went before me, that it just wasn't normal for women to work and be able to create, businesses and be able to do extraordinary stuff. But my personality and my brain, I get really unhappy when I'm not what I call usefully deployed. So I need to be usefully deployed. If I'm studying stuff, or I can really get into myself. So, it's been the greatest gift to be born into, a generation of women that basically were able, to work. However, saying that, when I first started growth engineering, it was very much people would look at me and they'd look at my co-founder. My co-founder was, 6'3", and they would literally just not look at me, even though I was the managing director. Everything would be, so I think, this time, I think lots of young girls completely forget how difficult, it has been for women to basically, lead companies, and especially in tech. Like, we are few and far between, women who basically have taken an idea and built a tech company, from scratch.
mm,
And, I do worry sometimes, when I hear people on, talking about stuff which is just, you know, and, recently, all this stuff about, you know, trashing on DEI. I'm like, this is terrible. Of course we should be celebrating diversity. Of course we should be celebrating as many different voices into, the economy and into our companies as possible. I mean, it's crushing that, we're now, 2025, and we've got one of the, main leaders of the world talking about how terrible diversity is. You're like, we should be including more people. We should be including more voices, you know? And I guess this is one of the central things about Zavmo as well. We want to include, you know, those people with neurodiversity issues, you know, people like myself that were locked out of, you know, education. Potentially I could have been locked out of a career, you know, people who are locked out, long-term unemployed. These are the people that we need to get back into our society, you know, to basically make them healthy and, you know, happy about their contribution and where they are in terms of, you know, achieving their life goals.
Mm, yeah. When it comes to growth, so the growth of Iridescent now, what's working? What channels, what strategies, what's the
So at the moment, we've just come out of a period where we've done our first decent pilot. So we've got a huge upgrade that is basically coming to the data science element, but also the front end of Zavmo. The next big push after that is business to consumer. So we're going to be linking it up to e-commerce so that we can allow anybody, you know, whether they want to be studying Reiki dog healing or whether they want to study for their management accounting exams, or whether they want to learn how they get from digital marketing into HR, whatever it might be. So we're just going to open it up to business to consumer. At the same time, we're obviously talking to a cadre of large corporates where we will be doing further pilots, and then we will be taking that pilot and moving slowly out and out and out. So one of the things is when you are putting in an AI for a company, because that's what Zavmo essentially is, we give you, you know, essentially a brand new baby. And then what we need to do is make sure that the individuals in that company can help us grow the data lake. So ensure that the things that are being put into the data lake are right for that company. So that could be, you know, they're in some of their internal communication systems. It could be regulations to do with their industry. It could be strategy initiatives. So we need to work with them to ever hone the information layer, you know, the database layer, the vector database layer that the LLM is pulling on. So, you know, it's a long-term growth strategy in order to get the Zavmo.ai perfected for their organization. So that's kind of where we are. We don't plan unless we really have to go out and get any VC money. As I say, I don't think finance people are majorly interested in female owned and probably not family owned. I mean, you know, businesses. So we don't have I don't particularly have any desire to be part of the tech bro Silicon Valley shenanigans. I am just, you know, shocked by the rubbish that comes out of their mouth half the time. So I have no desire to be in that Billy Bollocks club. But let's see what happens. I mean, ultimately we've got to sell stuff. Ultimately we've got to partner with awesome companies like Centrica that are willing to, you know, work with small innovative companies like Iridescent to see if we can transform the future of human development.
Hmm, awesome. Yeah, so it's all self-funded then. It's like, yeah. Yeah, so I mean you've got to have, to have built like management team and all the product development, there's got to, you've got to have, yeah, runway and all that to get going. So that's obviously, do you ever feel like the pressures of growth and like time running out or anything like that when it comes to
Yeah.
growth?
Oh,
Yeah.
of course. Of course. Yeah, no, of course. I mean, there's no doubt, like, cash is king, right? If there's no money to pay anybody, then, you know, the dream just falls past the wayside. So one of the things I would say with Iridescence is obviously I was lucky enough to have growth engineering, right? So growth engineering,
Mm,
very successful, you know, company. And that's obviously allowed me to do what I've done with regards to Iridescent, because I spent 20 years, you know, pushing that ball uphill in order to grow a company. And obviously, you know, that was successful. And so that's allowed me to invest in Iridescent. But what I would say is if you are somebody who wants to start and build your own company through, you know, the way I did it, so without any external, uh, you know, support in terms of financing, you know, it's a long old slog.
mm,
There's no quick magic. You know, there's no, you don't wake up one day and go, wow, let me go shopping for a Ferrari. I mean, it's literally just hard work every single day. It's relentless hard work every single day, which means that you've got to love it. And there
Mm,
is no get rich quick. Like, there isn't. There's no like, oh, let's go away. We'll take a, we'll have a party in a Greek island and yeah, you do that when you've got venture money, when you've got fools that, like all of that rubbish. But that's not real. That's not real business. That's not real, real businesses are, have I got a problem that is really big, sufficient enough that a company will pay me money for solving that problem? And then when they allow me to see if I can solve that problem, do I blow their socks off? And during that whole process, will there be close to zero problems, or as close to zero problems that they know of?
mm,
It's hard. It's hard, and
mm,
that's why most people don't do it. That's why most
yeah.
people, because it's really hard. And then when you're doing all of that, you are literally crying into your tea in the morning, your coffee in the afternoon, and you're up all night sweating because you don't know when the money's going to be running out. It's hard being an entrepreneur.
Mm,
Hard. It
yeah.
is hard. You're the last one to get paid, You're the
Yeah.
last one to get credit. You're the last one. It is hard. But
Mm,
you set the dream. You set the vision. So what's the trade-off? What do you want? What do you
mm,
want? I personally
yeah.
want to set the vision. I want to change the world. I
Mm,
want I want to, create what people are going to be learning on. I want
mm,
people to go, you know what? I got that career. I got that GCSE. I got that because I was taught in a way that worked for me. That product
mm.
changed my life. That's what I want.
Amazing. Well, on that note, Juliette, where can people find out more about you online?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. And for those of you who like long, long white papers that are quite academic, I am very, very good at those. So if that is of interest, so I write lots of white papers on neuroscience and AI. However, there is more fun stuff that the rest of the company does. So you can definitely follow us on various social under Zavmo and also Iridescent. But I love talking to people who are interested in, the areas that I am. So please do reach out. And thank you very much for having me on, James. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for coming on, and really appreciate your insights in this conversation. And yeah, I'll be watching the growth of Iridescent and Zabmo with great interest. I love the sound of everything you're doing. So yeah, I really appreciate it.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot.